We do have a little bit of an issue in the NFL. I don't know if anybody's noticed. A lot of guys getting popped for COVID. COVID is popping up around the league. You got the Browns, who've got a game coming up this weekend against the Raiders. Since some would call it another bye week. Again, I'm not going to take a shot at the Raiders. I'm not going to do that here. Be a professional broadcaster. But the Browns, we've got Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, who I believe missed the playoff game last year because of COVID. Right. And then you've got Baker Mayfield who tested positive, but there's been some discussion that because of the new variant that is out there, the symptoms are a lot less mild, but that it's a little bit more contagious than the original. And so most of these guys are asymptomatic. Now, the NFL chief medical officer, Dr. Alan Sills, spoke yesterday about the situation and what changes could take place.
You're trying to return someone when it's safe for them, when they are no longer a risk to themselves or to others. We study our returns very carefully, and we look at that in light of those outcome measures. And so I think those are obviously ongoing discussions and things that we'll consider.
So, and we're seeing this, it was brought up by Adrian Wojnarowski who covers the NBA, who said the same thing. They're looking at what we need to do to sort of modify some things because they don't feel like this strand or whatever you want to call it should be treated as severely as maybe the other one was.
Well, that's shocking.
So
we're finally getting to a point where we realized from a year ago where I said we're going to have to learn to live with it. Like we are. We're going to have to learn at some point to live with COVID. And that might sound controversial to you, but it's not. It's the reality of throughout history, when you go through different viruses, different diseases, at some point you have to learn to live with it and learn how to work and learn how to socialize and learn how to do all these things. Now, it might be a little different, but at some point you have to learn to live with it. And this is why I asked Dr. Chow this the other week. If you are asymptomatic, you're not showing any signs, any symptoms, are you sick? I mean, a lot of people will sit there and they'll act like they are sick just because they're carrying the virus. They can give it to other people. They're asymptomatic. What do you want that person to do? I just look at this and I think at some point we're going to have to realize that we're going to have to live with it, and we're not going to be able to continually let it stand in the way of everything. Every single time there's an outbreak or a game pops up, we need to make sure if someone's symptomatic, different story, send them home. They need to be away from everyone, quarantined. They're at risk. If they're asymptomatic, they're not at risk to pass this along. I mean, that's documented. I'm not a doctor, but you can ask anyone about that. So the way we've been looking at this, and I know there's a battle with the NFLPA and the NFL right now, because the NFLPA advised daily testing, even for those who are vaccinated. But the NFL, they full well knew before the season started, if they didn't throw that out there as an incentive to players to get vaccinated, they weren't going to do it. And so they were only testing once a week. And now the NFLPA is like, I told you, look at the outbreak. We should do daily testing. Okay, well, then you might not have had as many guys vaccinated in the first place because there was no incentive to do so. And that's the reality of it, is a lot of these players realize they're not in the at-risk category, and they'd rather not put something into their body that they don't have control over. Much like anything that's a PED, it's the same thing. Like, they didn't have time to research and understand it. So there's a lot of guys who are still apprehensive about it. And I think we can all see that opinion on all of it with the way these guys have handled their bodies. So I look at it and wonder, at what point are we going to learn that we're going to have to live with it? We're going to have to figure out kind of ways out around it, maneuvering. I know we kind of have to a degree, but we still keep making it something that when guys are asymptomatic, and there's plenty of guys who might be asymptomatic who are carrying another virus, but they don't know it. But we don't treat it the same as we do COVID right now. So I just, looking into the future, we're going to have to learn to live with this.
It's a very good point. I mean, because honestly, if we were testing for things that dudes might be carrying, you might be shocked. You might be surprised at some of the things that just pop up.
A human braille?
Hey, man. Every year. Hey, remember those executive physicals you used to get every year?
Oh, I used to be scared to death.
Because you could always opt in to getting tested for everything.
Or you could opt out, right?
Yeah. And I remember there were some dudes who'd be like, no, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Like, they would not opt into it. I was
true.
like, nope, I want a clean bill of health. Test me for everything.
I used to do it. I'd be scared to death. I'd be sitting there like, when are those results coming back again? Did you say it was 24 or 48 hours? Like, let me get my last meal.